Under Minnesota law and through court decisions, as well as arbitration proceedings, many items are likely to be seen as mandatory subjects of bargaining, including wages and benefits. Let's explore important considerations in wage and benefit negotiations. Negotiation is a discussion intended on producing an agreement. In negotiating a collective bargaining agreement, the employer and union seek agreement on the terms and conditions of employment. Let's focus specifically on negotiating the term and condition of employment around wages and benefits. First, internal equity should be the agency's primary goal in labor relations, both in terms of compensation as well as benefits. The fact of the matter is, internal equity is often the key to maintaining employee morale. For agencies wishing to maintain non-union employee groups, this is important because it provides an incentive for non-union employees to remain non-union. If organized groups do not obtain wages greater than non-union employees, there's less incentive to organize. One important area agencies must take into consideration in negotiation is the impact of any wage position on the employer's obligation to maintain pay equity. An agency should not negotiate any increase that will take it out of pay equity compliance. Next, the amount of pay and benefits provided in comparable agencies and other entities should be considered as a key element of negotiation. Employers should look to see if what it pays its employees bears a reasonable relationship with external comparables. These external comparables are also given primary consideration by arbitrators when resolving disputes over essential employee pay issues. Unions and agencies often spend a considerable amount of time during negotiations discussing what are comparable jurisdictions and wages. Accordingly, an agency should have performed an advanced review of this issue before starting negotiations. The employer's position within the external market involves at least two inquiries. The first is defining comparable external markets. Factors such as population, tax capacity, geographic location, and types of services provided are generally considered. For example, a truck driver may have a comparable counterpart within the private sector, whereas a police officer does not have a private sector comparable. An agency will need to decide the most relevant comparable external market for all jobs. The second inquiry is determining the agency's appropriate position within that external market. Typically, a comparable market will consist of several other agencies. Not all of these agencies in the market will have the same rate of pay. One consideration is the average pay of the external market, or are we going to lead, lag, or meet that market average? The employer will need to identify and decide where the range in the comparable market exists or should exist. Our third key element of negotiating wages and benefits involves the agency's ability to efficiently manage and conduct their operations. This factor should be used simply noted as the agency's interest or ability, or sometimes both, to pay for increases to wages and benefits. This is a complex policy decision based on both current financial data and projections into the future. Agencies should recognize that there's a difference between ability to pay and the organization's willingness to pay. Valid areas to explore include if payment of the amounts in dispute jeopardize an organization's financial status or create inefficiencies in managing and conducting operations. It's important to remember that arbitrators generally continue to believe that there's a difference between the ability to pay and an employer's willingness to pay. The agency will need to show the amounts in dispute will harm the organization's financial status and result in negative consequences to its citizens. The agency should show efforts already taken to reduce costs such as layoffs or other budget cuts. Further, an explanation of how the agency's reserves will be used and why the organization maintains those certain levels is critical in an ability to pay argument. The fourth and final key consideration is the effect the economy has on the employee, or the cost of living. Most negotiations will start with the union's premise that an employee should be increasing their compensation at a level necessary to maintain, if not advance, their standard of living. This involves consideration of inflation. A statistic often used in this area is the change in the Consumer Price Index, or CPI. This issue is most often associated with pay increases and is less applicable to negotiating benefits.